First things first is one of the most important things about studying anything that requires a bit of effort and consistency is that we need motivation. If you're motivated to do something, you get it done. That's the reality. And so the first thing I like to explore is why we do things. I'll give you a story about this. I might have given to you if you were at the open day. Is that when I came back from Morocco, I was 29 years old, and guess what? I couldn't drive. And I went, and I was about to get married. And I thought, I can't drive, you know, I need to be able to drive. I'm in Bradford, I was in BD9 at that point, Heaton Road. And I was like, I need, you know, to get into city centre, I'm not going to use public transportation, I need to drive. And I'm getting married as well. And one of the other motivating factors was, I can't be sitting in the passenger seat, my missus driving, you know, my male ego won't accept it. So I had some real emotional motivation to drive that was tangible. Does that make sense? And then, on top of that, I started the driving, and my driving instructor had a checklist, and he said, how old are you? I said, I'm 29. He looked at the statistics, he says, you're 29, it's going to be about 60 lessons you need. He said, look at an 18-year-old. 18 is when you can drive, isn't it? It's 18? Yeah. 16. Is it 16 now? Okay. I think he might be 16 or whatever. He said, look at a 16-year-old. He says, 10 or 12 lessons. Because when you're younger, you just pick up things faster. So there I was, 60 lessons. I went into 70 lessons. And I was driving in Heaton, which has the lowest pass rate in the country because of these boy racers, I'm assuming. But I failed 3 times in Bradford, and then I moved to Keighley. And Keighley failed once, and then eventually Uncle G, he was my driving instructor, he passed me. So I passed on my 5th time. I was hating driving. I mean, I was money after 25 quid after 25 quid, humiliation, all sorts of things was happening to me. But did I give up? No, because I had a strong motivation. Why? There was like no compromise. I'm going to pass even if it kills me, because there was a tangible why. When I was on my knees crying, I said, why on earth am I doing this? And my wife was standing there saying, you better learn to drive, I'm not going to drive you everywhere. So there was a tangible goal. So when we're doing anything that requires a bit of effort, you need to have a strong motivation. At the beginning of this course, you don't need any motivation. Why? Because you're so excited, you're doing something new, something curious, mysterious. And you've all been to W.H. Smith's and got your new pens and got your erasers and got your exercise books, and you're comparing with one another and thinking, isn't this exciting, I'm part of something new. This is the honeymoon period. And guess how long the honeymoon period lasts in Arabic? They say in marriage it lasts about 2 years if you're lucky. In Arabic it lasts you about 2-3 months if you're lucky. And then things start to kick in. Oh, I've got this in my life, I've got that in my life. I make a joke, it's only a joke. I says, in this year, don't go on Hajj, don't get married, and don't get pregnant. They're the 3 things that will kill you on this Arabic course. But that's a joke, obviously, it's not necessarily. But the point is that try to get the consistency is important. And that's all about motivation. You're going to get to some point where you're going to ask, why am I doing this? I've got all these other things I need to do, and how am I going to fit it in? So that's when you've got to really ask, why am I doing this? And you have to have a concrete why to that, an answer to that why. It can't be, well, and I'm not dismissing this. This might work for some people. I'm not saying it's not going to work. But for some people, I want to get closer to Allah. I want to understand his book. They're just not concrete enough. Does that make sense? It's got to be some real tangible goal. It's like when you go up to the kid and say, who's your hero in life? And his parents have told him, Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he's got Hulk Hogan on his T-shirt. You know, who are you trying to fool? You know, we know who you're really like. And that's what is going to show up in this Arabic course, whether do you want it or don't you want it. And I'm going to support you as much as I can, but it all comes down to you in the end. So if you look on page 2, so you guys are to share with Arusa there. Do you see there's a little scroll there on page 2? That's where you're going to put your motivations. Why on earth why are you putting yourself through this? And you don't necessarily have to fill that in today, But in this year, you want to start building up why you're doing this, so that when you feel weak and you feel like giving up, you look back at that and you think, yes, that's why I'm doing it. So today, what I want you to do is, I'm going to ask you some simple questions. Please don't take long on this. It's, what's your name? Where you're from? What city? How did you hear about the course? And why you're here? I'm going to ask you that question. If you can't answer, maybe you might not know why you're doing it yet. Some people might think, my dad made me do it, you know, or someone told me about it, I thought it'd be a good idea. That, you know, at the beginning, it just might be that, but at some point, you're going to have some concrete intention. So no pressure. I'm just going to ask you these questions. Okay, good, yeah. And notice that you said you're tired, so there's an emotional thing there. And that's what's going to get the motivation. Motivation is all linked to emotion. So if there's not some motivation, like I'm frustrated reading this, I really want to, that's going to keep you motivated. What was encouraging for me was a sister last year said she's been studying Arabic for 25 years and been frustrated, and she said, your course got me there. And so I was like, yes. It just needs, you need a course that gives you a focus and gets you to the, you know, what you want, rather than being very genuine. The other motivation for some is that my kids are learning and I look like a right wally. You know, I want to be able to teach them and engage with them, and that's a real motivation because it's something you have to face every day. Now, if you think about driving, how do you get so good at it? It's because you keep using it every day. It's a necessity. And so that's important that you make the Quran like your wird for the week. You know, you have some connection to the Quran every week. You say, whether it's once a week, whether it's 3 times a week, whatever it is, so that you can see, oh my goodness me, I'm picking up stuff. That's the motivation. You get really motivated because you see you're picking things up. Thank you very much. So maybe what someone said has given you, like, because I said your intentions will develop. Things like understanding what I'm reciting in Quran, reciting in prayer, about my kids are learning. What I found really encouraging, one of the sisters this year went on Hajj and she said I could understand a lot what the Imam was reciting. So that's another one. You know, one of my students had intention, next Ramadan, I want to be able to pick up some of what, if he doesn't read too quickly, that I'll be able to pick up some of what he's reciting. So that gives you a time measurement as well, doesn't it? Like, by this time I want to, and so that gives you that impetus to try. So that's another important thing to do. So in the end, that box needs to be filled up with things that you can reflect back on. Does that make sense? And it's always that why that we're interested in. So, let me just check where I'm at. So, is Arabic difficult? Yes, it's difficult. Anything that you have to apply yourself is difficult, but as I said, I think driving's far more difficult. Because you say, no, it's not. Well, it's because you use it every day. It's become to the point where my brother-in-law said to me, you know when you're a good driver, when the car feels part of you. You know when you don't even have to look at your reference points anymore. You feel it. Do you know when you're doing that parallel park or whatever, you just feel it in your body that it's the right time to turn and you can get in that gap. Can you relate to that, or is it still not there? Huh? Yeah, and so forth. You get to feel it, don't you? And that's when you really know something. And the biggest hurdle for people learning is that they think, I don't know this. Oh, seems a bit difficult. And then all the negative monkeys in their head, the chimp, what they call it, the chimp complex, paradox, whatever they call it, starts nattering at the head, you're useless, you can't do this, not good enough, and all this sort of stuff. And then you listen to that and you think, oh, what's the point? So this is really important that people understand the 4 processes to learning. Are you familiar with this? You walk down the street, you see someone driving and you can't drive, but you walk down and you see that boy racer and you think, I could do that. Can you do that? No, this is what we call unconscious let me get the spelling right. Unconscious, what is it? Incompetence. What's that mean?
Competence.
You don't know that you don't know that you can't do it. So we're all at that stage at the beginning, and then finally that guy pulls over. He says, "All right, bro," he says, "get in with me," and I'll sit in the passenger seat and you drive. And then you realise what? Then what's the next stage to learning? Conscious. Go on. Incompetence. You now know that you don't know. Yeah? And that's where a lot of people give up. They think, they feel humiliated by it. Maybe I believe the education system's traumatised us all, you know, because we've all had these negative people telling us, what, you got 80%? Why didn't you get 800%? What's wrong with you? You'll never be a doctor. And all these sort of ways we've been brought up. But this just means, like one guy says, you know, these personal growth people, Tony Robbins, is it Tony, what's his name? Tony Robbins, is it? Or Robbins?
Tony Robbins.
He says, someone says, I don't understand, and he gets them all to go, yay, you don't understand, because that's the opening to understanding. Does that make sense? So, but we can use that energy of understanding to either beat ourselves up, or actually think, well, hey. And so when you say to me, I don't understand, we're all going to go, way! Okay? And if you say to me, for example, what was I going to say here? That, I've lost my chain of thought now. If, yeah, here's the one. If I say to you, new rule, some people go, oh, new rule? Oh, I don't even remember the last ones, and they go all like this. Now, do you react like that when you go into the supermarket and see a new flavour of Ben & Jerry's? Do you go, oh God, another flavour that I've got to think about? It's too stressful for me. Do you react like that when there's a new flavour out? No, whatever what's your poison? Okay, if it's not Ben & Jerry's, whatever it is, you think, well, hey, I can try something new. Why don't you do that with learning? It's just a matter of perspective, isn't it? And so it's how the psychology of learning is so important in this. So conscious incompetence. Then you move to the next stage. What do you think it is? Conscious competence. What does that mean? You do understand, but you have to be really conscious about it. So when I passed my driving test, I was like the granny at the wheel, you know. And my wife was trying to talk to me, and I went, don't talk to me, I've got to focus. And oh, I've done 1 mile over 30 and all this. You're like super hyper focused on everything. And that's what learning's like initially. You know it.
You have to put effort in.
You have to put quite a bit of effort in. And a lot of people think they know it at that stage, and they sort of relax and let off, and then it goes. So, because they forget there's one more stage to learning. What is that?
Unconscious competence.
There you go. Unconscious. Excuse me, handwriting. What's that mean?
You mean you just do it by muscle memory?
Exactly. So you're in the car and you're on the mobile phone and you're eating a Mars bar and you're chatting and waving to someone whilst you're doing it. It like just flows in your blood.
Because your muscles have memory, don't they?
Exactly, there is. There's 4 types of memory, but I won't go there because I'll be here all day. I'll go off on a tangent. But it's in your blood. And what got you there? Consistency and perseverance. Simple as. And so nothing's difficult because driving, you've got to focus on this, you've got to focus on that mirror, you've got to focus on the brake, the gears, think how many things you've got to do, and in Bradford, you've got to think about a number of other things, haven't you? But you still managed to do it. Why? Because you did it persistently, and you do it consistently. You were persistent and consistent. Clear? Arabic's no different. But you've got to see, how am I going to get this into my life to be... So I'm going to be persistent, but I've also got to be... What is it? That's another one of my catchphrases. And I have a number of catchphrases through this course. My students last year actually devised me T-shirts to wear. So I wear the T-shirt of the catchphrase of the day. So that's one thing. Next thing, and then we do some actual learning, is that another thing about learning is this mnemonic. Fast. Fast learning. How do I learn quickly? Ready? F stands for... Now, this is where I find out if everyone's watched the videos before. Hey! So ideally, this is a side point here, the best way to learn is how. You look over the material before the class, so that when you come into the class, you're prepared. It's like gym. Learning is like gym for the brain. If you go to the gym, if you go to the gym and you haven't sort of warmed up, what's going to happen when you wake up next morning? you are going to not be able to get up. Have you ever had that experience? Same thing here. If you haven't looked over the material and got like a, just not like gone over it too much, but you got an idea, after half an hour in the class, guess what happens? Your brain goes, no more, and your eyes start going, ooh, and I can tell when people are drifting, okay? I'm very good at reading people's faces. And then you're basically, the rest of the class, you might as well just go in and sit in at the back and have a head massage or something. Because now, you can't, nothing's going to go in. So that's what I find students that really succeeded. They've done a little bit of prep before, so they come in and it's just like consolidating what you've learned and clarifying misconceptions. And then the next step is 48 hours afterwards, and you're lucky, you guys, because you've got the revision class on Friday, less than 48, you go over it. I find I did that in my Arabic course. I never had to revise for an exam because it's a 3-step technique, I call it. So this is the thing. The first one is forget. Forget? I've come here to learn. What do you mean? What do I mean forget? Any ideas?
Forget, like, outside.
Yeah, forget about your world, forget about your puttur at home, forget about, you know, whatever there is, forget about your learning Arabic before as well, because many people have been broken-hearted by Arabic. You know, I'm like the 4th marriage for them, and they're thinking, can I really fall in love? I don't know. And so it's about just putting all past experiences to the side, bad habits of learning, everything, and here I am. There's a phrase, I like this phrase, where is it here? It says, before we learn, we need to learn how to learn, and before that, we need to unlearn. Yeah? Does that make sense? Before we learn, we need to learn how to learn, and before that, you need to learn how to unlearn, because you've learned so many bad habits and preconceptions about yourself as well. All your psychological issues come out in Arabic. Yeah, it's like, honestly, they do. So that's the first thing, how to forget and use this time in the lesson as your me time. You've got no other pressures on you. Let go of all the thoughts, worries about the world, and just spoil yourself for 38 weeks with me, where we just chill out together. So forget. Next one, A stands for? Active. I.e., in this class, you have to be active. I call it milk bottle learning. You're going, I'm feeding you information, and you're just going like this. That's not learning. And unfortunately, a lot of traditional learning is like that. You have to be active. So most of the class I want you... So even when I'm asking a question or I'm saying something, repeat it back in your head actively, you know. If you're active, then you learn. If you're passive and just go at me, you're not going to be learning. And so it's important that you engage with me. Like, I love pantomime. A bit of pantomime, I'll be thrown out and everyone shouts it out together and I feel loved and I feel supported and I feel, you know. So it's important to be very active in the class and to get, what do we got here? That's something else. S. What is it? This one's trickier. State. Come into the class with a good state of mind. And that relates also to your physiology. If I'm like, oh, I'm having such a good time. Do you believe me? No, your physiology is going to tell me, says, you know, hey, going to learn. If I'm like this, no one's going to be convinced I'm happy. If I'm like this, I'll say, I really hate you. You know, you're not going to believe me because my physiology tells me otherwise. So physiology, how you're feeling, is really important in the lesson as well. That's S, state. And this, the last one. Imagine if I was to get you, Kenza, to teach this lesson after me. You're going to do it for 2 hours after me. Would your attention rate, your focus be better? Of course it would. Because you've got motivation now. I'm going to look like a right wally up there if I don't know my stuff. So you see there's an emotional link here. When there's emotion, you will definitely remember. And so imagine after this lesson, you're going to go home and teach someone it. Imagine it. In Mauritania, I heard, not been there, but I heard that they teach themselves after a lesson. They say, okay, how many words are there in Arabic? And I won't give the answer because that's about to come up. Said, that's right. Okay, which one are they? So he asked, so you know when you get home, go in the mirror and teach yourself. Your family might think you lost the plot, you know. But it's, when you teach something, you really learn whether you know something. Does that make sense? So this is how to approach Arabic.
How many words are there in Arabic?
Oof, I don't even know off the top of my... Oh, words. Oh, in terms of... You mean words in total?
Yeah.
That's not my question, but I don't know the answer to that. There's a lot. But this brings us now to the next part, where we're going to get practical now. Is that clear for everybody? So there's me Mr. Motivator speech done. Now let's get on with it.